Hey y'all, welcome to Paige's Perspective, where I help you find your inner strength to cope with life. I hope y'all are enjoying Matt's episodes while I take a bit of a step back to clear my mind and kind of get my life together. I'm trying to practice what I preach, and it feels good to take a bit of a step back and see things more clearly. I will be back on the Wednesday episode stronger than ever, but for now, I'm just focusing on some important things within my life, like our kids and marriage and, just all the things that might have been on the back burner for a little bit. So today's episode may be all over the place, but I'm still showing up. Matt posted in the community recently how it's challenging for me to go back in time when it comes to this life. And he was so on point with his post. But I want to share some reasons as to why I don't necessarily like discussing addiction. Matt can talk about it all day long, and we have a module in our program about addiction, but I'm always one to look outside the box. So as society, we think that if we just understand someone more or something, we can fix it. We can support easier. We can find solutions to our problems. But sometimes we're learning about the wrong things. Well, I guess it's not necessarily wrong. However, it's not the best direction because it still focuses on another person. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Addiction is a cover. Yes, I know it is deep and I know addiction is a problem. However, my job and my purpose is to shift some perspectives to help you find yourself again. This doesn't happen by focusing on the substances or addiction. This happens when we focus on our values, our wants, our needs, and yes, the behaviors. So here's the truth. I don't like talking about addiction, and not because it's not real, not because it's not devastating, but because it's not the core of the problem. It's often just a convenient cover for patterns of behavior that need to be addressed no matter what. People want something simple to point to, an explanation that makes sense of the behaviors like betrayal, the lies and manipulation, all the things that typically occur when someone is in an active addiction. It's the booze, it's the drugs, it's the gambling. And I know that these things will amplify the behaviors. Like, I understand how it impacts the brain and all of that. However, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. The behaviors impact us and our children. That's where our focus should shift. Addiction has become an easy scapegoat. It feels safer to blame it than to confront the behaviors that it's easier to confront that the behaviors themselves, with or without the substances, are the actual problem. That's why I'm more interested in who we are, what we tolerate, and whether we're living by our values. I'm more interested in the spouse and partner's journey of how they feel like they've lost themselves, how they feel like they can't meet their heart with their logical mind, how they feel like they're drowning and need space to breathe. Like, I get it. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here for you and to help you find yourself again and make decisions that align with your values and your authentic self. That's what drives me. When my husband was in active addiction, I didn't know jack shit about addiction. I didn't know the disease model. I didn't know the slogans. I didn't know the rules people tell you to follow. And honestly, I didn't care. I think that saved me because I wasn't clouded by all the ways we're told to understand addiction or excuse behavior because of it. It's just the alcohol talking. Oh, it's just the drugs. I just went by what I saw and felt. I looked at the behaviors. Were they honest, respectful, aligned with my values, or were they hurtful, manipulative, and unsafe? I didn't need to label it to know it wasn't okay. And that's what I want more people to get, to understand that you don't need to be an expert in addiction to know when something violates your values. And I see and hear all the time from people who say, I hate addiction. And I get it. I'm not here to judge. And but I do want to reframe this a bit. Most people will say it because of the destruction in the relationship. The view might be addiction ruined our marriage. My view is that the behaviors ruined the marriage. Addiction just amplified them. The lies, manipulation, betrayal, unequal partnership, selfishness. Those are the things that hurt a marriage. And you may say, well, those behaviors wouldn't be there if addiction wasn't there. You don't know this. And that is just looking at potential or playing the what if game. And it's not reality. The reality is that the behaviors are happening, addiction or not, they are there and they are impacting people. A lot of people say that they hate addiction because of the chaos and instability. So their view may be if the drinking or using stopped, the chaos would stop. My view is that lying, controlling, neglecting, these can exist without substances. The issue is tolerating them. Trust me, I know why we tolerate shitty behavior sometimes. They're really, really good at what they do when it comes to manipulating. We can lose ourselves and our values in these relationships. So instead of focusing on the addiction, we need to understand how to not tolerate crappy behavior and things that are harming us. Some people say that they hate addiction because it changes the person they love. Their view may be addiction turned them into someone else. My view is that those behaviors didn't, just appear out of thin air. They're part of the bigger picture that needs to be addressed, sober or not. Some of the behaviors were there before addiction. You just may not have known. They may not have been as bad. My suggestion is to read the Lundy Bancroft's Why Does He Do That book for an understanding of controlling men and how sobriety doesn't necessarily change them. And listen, sobriety does matter. It is the prerequisite to changing the behaviors, but it's not the finish line. Sobriety simply removes the thing that was making the behavior louder. And without the commitment to actually address those patterns, sobriety alone changes nothing long term. It's like 5% of the problem. Some people who say, I hate addiction, they say they hate addiction because of wasted potential. Their view may be they had so much going for them before addiction. Well, my view is that potential only matters if they choose to change their behavior. And even then, what does reality say today? We must look at reality and not potential. Some people say, I hate addiction because they see addiction as the root cause. Their view may be like, if addiction's gone, everything's fine. My view is that addiction is just a cover. The behaviors, the values we compromise, the way we lose ourselves, that's the real work. And again, addiction is really all. But to make real changes within our lives, we must look within ourselves. Our values are so important to help us navigate our lives, not understanding addiction more. So I want to shift for just a moment to discuss our online community on Facebook. When we set up the community, my vision was to have a safe space for people to discuss their growth. I wanted to see how people were learning how to take care of themselves, take action, live by their values, posting self-care, something different than any other Partners of Addicts groups. It's not a place I want to endlessly analyze addiction or even codependency. I may be having an episode on codependency soon with some of my real thoughts, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, I think it's important to discuss how our partners have impacted us, but I do not typically like the discussions around addiction or substances because that's not really what we're about. Think outside the box. Questions to ask instead of like, how do I help them get sober? Or they're drunk again. What do I do? Ask these questions instead. Do these behaviors belong in my life? What kind of relationship do I want to be in? If they never changed, would I choose this for myself? Am I living in alignment with my values or constantly making exceptions? What am I modeling for my kids, friends, or family about love and respect? What parts of myself have I set aside to keep this relationship going? If I met this person for the first time today, would I still choose to be with them? Do my boundaries protect me or do they bend every time there's a crisis? Am I more invested in their potential than in my own peace or reality? I also love to see the self-care posts. Things people have learned from the podcast. What are you doing differently? Micro wins, how to handle financial situations, things like that. Things that don't revolve around addiction or substances. When others see growth, they're going to be inspired to make changes too. And sure, there is a place to release your fears and your thoughts and your feelings. We have many community calls available for that. We also have our own program we developed with a licensed therapist that has truly turned lives around. We discuss how to find your values, set boundaries, trauma bonds, relationship dynamics. We offer a relationship evaluation, Matt's module on addiction. So we do touch on it a little bit. There's some self-care ideas, personal challenges to help you understand your thought patterns and how to shift them, and so much more. You get access to us Wednesday evenings with others going through the program where, we have support calls. And you can use the code Wheelies75 at independentlystrong.com to get access today. It's self-paced. because we know how challenging it is to do things for ourselves when we're the ones holding everything together. You don't have to go at it alone, and we're here for you. So if you've been blaming addiction for all of your pain, I want you to zoom out. Look at the behaviors you've been dealing with. Look at the values that matter most to you. And then look at yourself, not to blame, but to get curious. Ask, where have I been showing up in ways that reflect the kind of life I want to live? Where have I been compromising who I am? And it's not about shame. It's about taking back the pen and writing the next chapter on your terms. You have the right to choose what you allow in your life. So I'm going to leave you guys with a challenge for this week. I want you to name one behavior you've been tolerating that violates your values. And then name one small, concrete step that you can take this week to stop tolerating it. Whether that's setting a boundary, changing how you respond, or even just saying it out loud to someone in the community. Let's try to take addiction out of the equation for a bit and see how you have more power within your life than you think. You may be shocked to realize how much more clarity you can gain just by shifting your perspective. So that's all I have for this week. Until next time, I'm Paige. Bye.